The chime of the bell beckons us into a sacred time. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, where we widen love's circle by honoring the inherent worth and dignity of all. We extend a heartfelt and an inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship and in service to the world. Buenos días y bienvenidos a esta comunidad donde ampliamos el círculo del amor honrando el valor y la dignidad inherentes de todos. We continue our observance of Black History Month, which was created so that only 11 rather than 12 months would be White History Month. We greet all those who join us this morning. We hope those watching the live stream will fill out the online attendance form and refer to the many announcements in the online order of service. We ask those here in person to take a moment after the service to seek out and introduce yourself to someone you don't yet know. We have visitors every Sunday, so please help make them feel welcome. Now please join Dr. Rock and the Sanctuary Choir for our first hymn.
Good morning. Please turn in your teal hymnals to number 1024. When the Spirit says do, then rise in body or in spirit and join your voices in song.
When the Spirit says do, what does the Spirit, the breath, the spark, the sense of communion and community that passes from each to each, what does the Spirit, whatever it is that drives life forward, contains the power of love that offers images of justice, that the thing that connects all of the living to all of the dead. What does the Spirit say to you this morning? To laugh, to dance, to sing on this green gray of a morning as the world tilts, as the sun spins? As we gather as a religious community, what does the Spirit say to you? Spirits of all, whatever joy or celebration, whatever sorrow or fear, whatever aspiration or inspiration your spirit brings, whatever the Spirit says do. This morning I say, welcome, friends. Let us worship together.
Celebremos compartiendo nuestras vidas, encendiendo esa
Please join me as we recite our congregational covenant found in your order of service. Love is the spirit of our congregation. Service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to encourage one another. Thus do we covenant.
Now it is time to send our young folks off to their religious exploration program, where they'll be joining Carol and the RE volunteers in some, I think, pretty exciting activities. So young folks, as you go, please remember that we love you, and we're really excited that you're here, because you're not just part of the future of our community, you're an important part of our presence. So please join with me now in singing As You Go, found in your order of service.
This is the time during the service when we pause, when we take time to enjoy just being. It's the time when we stop rushing and try to shut out the distractions. It's the time during the week when we are able to be comfortable with the silence. And so, with intention and care, we carve out this time to enter into a time of stillness, a time that may bring us a new peace and understanding. This is a time that some call meditation and others name prayer. Settle your body into a comfortable place. Breathe with me as we gather to do the holy work of kinship and support. Open your mind, open your heart. God of many names and mystery beyond all our naming, we gather as one week progresses into the next. Weeks when it may be easier to focus on our concerns than our joys. But we gather again in this sanctuary in an assembly of hope and restoration. We gather to buoy one another with love and resilience. We look toward gratitude as a source of healing. We give thanks for the grace shown us in our lives, for arts and music and good friends. We give thanks for that which lifts us up and for the lessons that we learn and lead us on. I continue by sharing a prayer by the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. Open unto me light for my darkness. Open unto me courage for my fear. Open unto me hope for my despair. Open unto me peace for my turmoil. Open unto me joy for my sorrow. Open unto me strength for my weakness. Open unto me wisdom for my confusion. Open unto me forgiveness for my sins. Open unto me love for my hates. Open unto me thyself for myself. Lord, Lord, open unto me. We pray in the names of all those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten. We pray in the names of all helpers of humankind. Amen. We pause now together to lift up that which sits heavy and light on our hearts. Several of our congregants and friends are hospitalized. Kathy Bosson is recuperating after a medical procedure on Friday. Both the mother of Albert Puccio and the mother of Dr. Rock, Mary, are in the hospital. We send our love and hope they all regain health quickly. We also reach out to P.D. Wadler, who is caring for his father during his ongoing health problems. Conrad Hamrick is also caring for his father, Rudy, as he convalesces at home after a recent hospital stay. We share concern with the federal employees whose livelihoods are being threatened. Their uncertainty is compounded by a judge's ruling halting the buyout offer. People continue to contract COVID. We wish a quick recovery to them. Please wear a mask and get tested if you have been traveling or experience any symptoms. And then we put a book in the foyer in which you may write your joys or concerns. And Becky asks for prayers for her friend, May her illness not take away her beautiful self. We now turn to a practice inspired by African, indigenous, and pagan traditions. We say aloud or bring to mind those who we wish to be held by the loving embrace of this religious community. They are part of the great cloud of witness and memory, and we will, even if we do not know their names, hold them in our hearts. In this great cloud of witness and memory, amid this beloved community, we hear these names and hold them in our hearts. Let us remember the suffering and joy amid and among our community that we do not know. Thich Nhat Hanh said, "Silence is something that comes from your heart, not from outside." Silence doesn't mean not talking and not doing things. It means that you are not disturbed inside. If you're truly silent, then no matter what situation you find yourself in, you can enjoy the silence. We now enter into a time of stillness. In the spirit of love, hope, and compassion, we enter into a time of silent prayer, meditation, and transformation.
Each week, our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values and through which we may live out our principles in the world. This week, we are donating to HBCU Arts. HBCU Arts celebrates, showcases, and promotes the artistic work of the students, faculty, and alumni of historically black colleges and universities. This morning, we'll welcome our own Dr. Jolie Rock to tell us more.
Good morning, and thank you to everyone for including HBCU Arts as a shared offering participant. HBCU Arts is a division of Driven Theater Company, a nonprofit since 2010. Driven Theater has been empowering, connecting, and entertaining diverse audiences with quality issue-driven theater, multidisciplinary arts programs, and educational initiatives designed to encourage the healthy development of the individual, the family, and society. HBCU Arts cultivates an ecosystem where the artistic brilliance of students, faculty, and alumni from historically black colleges and universities is realized through ample resources and opportunities that enable them to flourish. This summer, here in Houston, our HBCU Arts Cradle program, the Career Resource Entrepreneurial Development Opportunity, will offer resources, networks, and opportunities to empower students, faculty, and alumni in their artistic careers. Other programs, such as the HBCU Arts Summer Festival on Martha's Vineyard, Bring the Strings, and our Arts and Humanities Data Research Initiative are in the works. We need you and appreciate and value the support that First UU is providing, and we love our connection. Thank you so much.
Those in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in the order of service next to the name of the shared offering recipient. And those watching the live stream will see the instructions on your screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to give generously. An offering will now be gratefully received.
Please join with me in the words to dedicate our offering found in your order of service. To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Our first reading is You're Dead, America, by Denise Smith. I fed your body to the fish, traded it at lunch for milk. I know where they buried you 'cause it's my mouth. They tell me bootstraps, and I spit up a little leather. They tell me Christ, but don't you have black friends? During the anthem, I hum no N-word in Paris. I cha-cha slide over the flag, sea walk on occasion. I put a spell on you. It's called for 3/5 of my blood. Apple pie, red bones, and a full moon. But instead I did it in the daylight, wanting you to see me ending you. Stupid, stupid me. I know better than to mess with a recipe. I don't make chickens when I don't have eggs. Look at what I did. On the TV, the man from TV is going to be president. He has no words and hair beyond simile. You're dead, America. And where you died grew something worse. Crop white as the smile of a man with his country on his side, a gun on his other. Tomorrow, I'll have hope. Tomorrow, I can sift the wreckage and find a seed. I don't know what will grow. I've lost faith in this garden. The bees are dying. The water poisons whole cities. But my honeyed kin, those brown folks who make up the nation of my heart, only allegiance I stand for. Realer than any god. For them, I bury whatever this country thought it was. Here ends the first reading.
The second reading is from The Light of the World by Elizabeth Alexander. Loss is our common denominator. None of us will escape it. None of us will outrun death. What do we do in the space between, that is our lives? What is the quality and richness of our lives? How do we move through struggle and let community hold us when we have been laid low?
To open your gray hymnals to number 108. My life flows on in endless song. Please rise in body or in spirit and lift your voices in song.
Through all
Loss is our common denominator. None of us will escape it. None of us will outrun death. What do we do with the space that is in between, that is our lives? You're dead, America. And where you died grew something worse. Words from Elizabeth Alexander and Danae Smith start our sermon on life after death. It addresses the most religious of subjects. In the past, I've offered you a definition of religion that comes from the Latin reliare. The word means to tie, to bind. Religion is what binds us together. We are all bound together by death. When Elizabeth Alexander wrote, "None of us will outrun it," she was thinking of us as individual mortals. But she might as well have been thinking of all being. Insects die, reptiles die, birds die, flowers die. The tight bud breaks into blossom and then drops from stalk a mottled wilt. Trees die, the boughs bending, falling in the wind, until they, in the last, decompose amidst fungal mycelium. You, me, everything, everyone dies in the end. Even the good green earth will die, the sun will burn away. Long after the last star has shone and the last human tongue has spoken the last human word, the universe will either fizzle or collapse. These truths lead to two fundamental religious questions. What do we do in the space between that is our lives? What is life after death? All of us are bound by such questions. We approach them as part of our Future Visions, Future Selves series. As you might recall, over the course of the year, we are considering different aspects of the future: societal, personal, and planetary. Together, we're asking questions like, what does the future hold? How might we prepare for it? This morning, we approach them as, you're dead, America. And where you died grew something worse. This morning, we approach them as the nation plunges into crisis. The world's richest man has declared war on the poor. Acting more like a corporate raider than a public official, he set out to dismantle USAID, the government agency responsible for providing the bulk of international aid from the United States to other countries. Millions of people in Africa alone rely on it. The savage cuts that are being made mean that in just Kenya, 40,000 healthcare workers will lose their jobs. That country also contains 2 large refugee camps, together housing 700,000 people. Most of what they rely upon comes from our country's financial contributions. All aid to South Africa is being halted. The president has declared that the nation's Afrikaner minority, the community responsible for the apartheid regime, are victims of unjust racial discrimination. The landmark program, PEPFAR, attached to USAID, has dramatically reduced the spread of and mortality from HIV/AIDS in that nation. It's estimated that across southern Africa, the program has saved 26 million lives. Its disappearance, the gutting of Kenya's healthcare system, and the defunding of refugee camps will likely lead to thousands or even hundreds of thousands of deaths in the next 4 years. Across the globe, the withdrawal of international aid will probably lead to the deaths of millions. You're dead, America, and where you died grew something worse. Nations, like flowers, like birds, like humans, die. Amid the calamity of the hour, it is reasonable to wonder if we have reached the end point of the United States. Long-established constitutional order appears to be passing away. We may well be confronted with the question of national life after death. For USAID is not the only institution that the man we might label President Musk is trying to kill. He's reported to be going after the Department of Defense and the Department of Education. Mass firings have been reported at the FBI and CIA. Every single federal employee is supposed to have received an email titled "Fork in the Road." It offers the option of receiving full pay and benefits through the end of September in exchange for immediate resignation. The email is accompanied by threats that no one's job is safe, and it's strongly hinted that many of those who refuse to resign will be fired anyway, without adequate severance. Unelected President Musk is trying to gain control of the Treasury Department's data and payment system. It's unclear to what extent that he has, but whatever is happening, many federal payments are frozen. All of this is illegal. Congress, not the president, is supposed to control the nation's finances. Union contracts, government policies, and congressional legislation are supposed to regulate the hiring and firing of federal employees. Judges have temporarily blocked much of what is happening. Nonetheless, it appears that the United States is in the midst of a full-blown constitutional crisis. John Naughton, a columnist in The Guardian, calls the situation a thoroughly modern coup d'etat. Mike Masnick, another journalist, has summed it up this way: a private citizen with zero constitutional authority is effectively seizing control of critical government functions. The Constitution explicitly requires Senate confirmation for anyone wielding significant federal power, a requirement that Musk has simply ignored as he installs loyalists throughout the government while demanding access to basically all levers of power. You're dead, America, and where you died grew something worse. The potential death of the constitutional order offers two insights about our mortal condition. First, no one knows what comes after death. Second, all of us will live and do live after death. Religion can help us prepare for living in death's aftermath. Let's examine each of those insights in turn. No one knows what happens after death. Still, many traditions approach the matter with certainty. Buddhist and Hindu scriptures describe our fate as an endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, perhaps broken by enlightenment that allows escape into final oblivion, and perhaps not. Most Christians speak of the somewhat unscriptural schema of heaven and hell, heaven for the righteous and hell for the wicked. And there is satisfaction to imagining where the lords of wealth are headed. Some add in purgatory as a place in between. A fair number of African and North American indigenous traditions offer narratives in which the dead become ancestors to be worshipped. The deceased watch over us as part of a great cloud of witnesses and bless us as we go about the messy human business of living. Even humanists speak with a confidence that I cannot muster. There is nothing after physical death, writes my friend Anthony Pinn. At best, we only remain alive in the memories of those whose lives we touched during our living, he continues. The only confidence that I have is the belief that whatever fate awaits one of us awaits all of us. I agree with the old Universalist sentiment expressed by the great abolitionist and Unitarian Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. We are all bound up together. Maybe there is a heaven to which we are all headed, possibly after having been cleansed of our earthly sins, or maybe immediately in a flash of glory. Alternatively, there might not even be consciousness of nothing. But truly, nobody knows what happens after death. You're dead, America, and where you died grew something worse. Such agnosticism is also warranted for the fate of nations. Historians, sociologists, political scientists, economists, and many a politician like to pretend that they have some great crystal ball with which they can see the future. Many a Marxist has predicted the inevitable collapse of capitalism. 30 years ago, the philosopher Francis Fukuyama wrote with some confidence, "We may be witnessing the passing of history as such. That is the end point of mankind's ideological evolution and the universalization of Western liberal democracy as the final form of human government." Such a perspective seems almost tragicomic as we witness efforts to turn the United States into a plutocracy, government by thieves, and the president and his allies prepare to loot public institutions. In the face of their actions, it can be easy to feel despair. In reaction to their campaign of shock and awe, it might seem like an invocation of George Orwell's dystopian quote is in order. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stomping on a human face forever. Sometimes I get stuck on such an image and fall into a sense of powerlessness. When I do, I try to recall a conversation I had with the photographer Nigel Dickinson. Nigel has taken pictures of all sorts of social conflicts and marginalized communities around the world. He's lived much of the history of the last 40 years and seen some truly horrible stuff, yet somehow maintains a generous spirit. Our exchange might have been an argument, because with Nigel you can never quite tell. But however I characterize it, it took place during the president's first term. I was in despair about all of the awfulness in the world. I had little confidence then, as I lack it today, that the leadership of the Democratic Party was going to stop what was going on. I feared that the world was plunging into an existential crisis from which it might never emerge. All of these fears may still be justified. However, whenever I offered an item from my anxious litany to Nigel, he responded the exact same way to each thing I put forward. If I made a point about something awful appearing in the future, he would say, "Nobody knows." My worries about the future of democracy, nobody knows. My concerns about the climate crisis, nobody knows. My funk about the plutocracy, nobody knows. Nigel's point was one well captured in a line from Joe Strummer of The Clash. The future is unwritten. We can speculate, we can look to history, we can look to science, we can imagine and forecast and read 100 books. We can try to figure out what is going to happen. But really, nobody knows. It is quite possible that the attempts to enshrine government by the rich, for the rich, into the marbled halls of Washington power will spark democratic renewal. Yesterday, I went to an organizing fair put on by the Democratic Socialists of America. Under a blue sky, amid music and beer at the Axelrad, there were hundreds of people learning about what different organizations are doing to try to better our city and our world. I suspect a couple of thousand folks passed through the event in its 6-hour duration. It's certainly the most well-attended affair put on by the political left that I've been to since moving to Houston. Most of the individuals there were a good 20 years younger than me, the future of our city. What happens next? Nobody knows. We are denied certainty in life as we are denied it in death. But it appears to be the human condition to crave certainty. Most of us, it seems, want to take gravity as our guidepost. We want to be able to proceed through life with the knowledge that most of our actions will lead to some sort of foreordained, inevitable conclusion. It's like we want to make choices as if we were picking up and dropping a rock. Put the stone in your hand, and surely it will fall to earth. But life lacks that predictability. There's an old Taoist tale that I find helpful whenever I want certainty or feel confident that one tragedy will inevitably lead to another. You might have heard it. It runs like this. Long ago, there was a peasant in China whose horse had run away. His neighbor commiserated with him. He replied, "Who can know if it is good or bad?" The very next day, the horse returned, bringing with him a herd of wild horses. The peasant was suddenly rich beyond his wildest imagination. When his neighbor commented on his good fortune, he replied, "Who can say if it is good or bad?" The next day, the peasant's son tried mounting one of the wild horses. He fell and broke both legs. Again, the neighbor offered the peasant his sympathy, and again the peasant replied, "Who can say if it is good or bad?" The very next day, the army came to the village and drafted all of the young men into service to fight some stupid faraway war. But the peasant's son was exempted from military service because of his injuries. You don't always know in the midst of things what is going to happen. Who can know if it's good or bad? Nobody knows. Death is the great undiscovered country. As with people, we do not know what will happen when nations die. We can speculate, but really, nobody knows. But we do know that for at least a long time, life will continue after death. We can prepare for the life that occurs after death, both as individuals and communities. Here at First Unitarian Universalist, we try to help you do just that, try to help you live after the deaths in your lives. Last month, we offered a workshop on end-of-life planning. Reverend Scott led a conversation on such matters as wills and final directives. Our goal was to help you to prepare to both have as comfortable a death as possible, and to let your loved ones live after your death. It was so popular, we'll be holding it again in a few months. We also offer a grief group for all of us live after loss. All of us are grieving. We all live after the deaths of loved ones. And so in our congregation, we try to create space for you to consider how you want to continue to live after the deaths of those you care about. Elizabeth Alexander has described our condition as the beginning, the end, and most of the time in the middle. And in our grief groups, in our religious community, we seek to make sense of, to live into the uncertainties and certainties of the time in between. We know that whatever happens, it will be a time including celebration and loss. For life is replete with loss as it is replete with beauty. What shall we do with all of it? How shall we prepare for our deaths as we live our lives? How do we live life after the death of loved ones? These questions are ones we must all answer. My own approach, and I suspect if you're here with us this morning or watching online, you share it, has been to seek out community. We live much easier with uncertainty if we have a bit of companionship along the way. I was reminded of this just last night when we hosted a wonderful jazz concert put on by Tex Allen. The bassist that was booked for the gig originally got stuck in Galveston. Tex, however, did not despair. He's part of the community of Houston's jazz musicians, so he was able to pick up the phone and within a 30-minute delay to the gig, find a replacement musician. The show went on, and what a show it was. Consider this a small illustration of how community makes it easier to live through the uncertainty of life and the uncertainty of life after death. And here I conclude with a reflection on the death of our constitutional order. For it seems clear that whatever political institutions and arrangements have held steady for the last decades, they are now in the process of dissolution. What will come next? Nobody knows. But I do have a proposal, perhaps a bit wild, to stop the looting and transform the moment into one of democratic potential. In opposition to mass layoffs, I suggest that federal workers should take a page from the anti-corporate raider playbook and stage a massive sit-down strike. They should report to work and refuse to leave until President Musk is no longer President Musk, and he has been forced back into the role of a private citizen. All fired federal workers have been rehired, all funds unfrozen, and the power of the purse returned to Congress. This modern coup d'etat is, after all, borrowing tactics from the politics of hostile corporate takeovers. And sit-down strikes have been proven to be very effective at stopping such takeovers. I encourage you to watch Naomi Klein's 2004 film, The Take, for examples of how they were deployed in Argentina. Here in the United States, we have a more recent instance. In December 2008, the Republic Windows and Doors factory in Chicago declared bankruptcy. The company's management quickly decided that they would close the plant and sell off all of their assets to pay their creditors first. No mention was made of severance for the workers. In response, 240 members of the United Electrical Workers Union sat down. They occupied the workplace, and they refused to leave until they were given the severance they deserved. Within a few days, they had met more than just their initial demands. They had won their jobs back. And a few months later, the banks agreed to turn the factory into a worker-owned cooperative. The beauty of such sit-down strikes is that they both prevent normal business operations and stop a company from selling off its assets. They ensure that workers and not management are the ones who maintain control of the physical premises so that work cannot continue until they receive the justice they need. Strikes in Korea of a similar nature, South Korea in a similar nature, recently prevented an attempted coup d'etat there. The country's president tried to organize it, and he is presently under house arrest. Such strikes also built the middle class in the 1930s when plants in my home state of Michigan were occupied. Would a wave of sit-down strikes here be effective? Nobody knows. But the old world is dying, and a new one is struggling to be born. Living through the afterlife of one might allow us to play midwife to another. I cannot promise certainty, but then I don't know what will happen after death. I don't know what will happen after the end of the United States either, whatever that might mean. But I can promise you that it will be easier in community. For in community, we can rely upon each other while we mourn. In community, we can celebrate beauty where we can be found. And in community, we can imagine new possibilities. In community, we live together after death. And so that it might be so, I invite the congregation to say, Amen.
I invite you to take your purple hymnals and open them to number 3. Gracias por el amor. Please rise in body or in spirit and join your voices with us in song.
Gracias
Please join me in reciting the words as we extinguish our chalice found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Let us leave this place knowing that the future is unwritten and that possibilities haunt each of us as we make our way living after death, headed towards death through the uncertainty of the world. Let us take comfort in that uncertainty. For what happens next, nobody knows. So let us depart conscious of the spark within and the unfolding beauty that surrounds us. Go in peace, go in love. May our lives be a blessing. Amen. Thank you for joining us. We want to know who you are and would love to connect with you. Please fill out the link to the online attendance form, and if you are on YouTube, click like and subscribe. If you're interested in joining our congregation, email us at membership@firstuuhouston.org. Thanks so much.